The movie Reign of Fire answers the question of what would happen if we discovered dragons were real. Not bones in the ground real, but Jurassic Park eat humans real. In the movie, the peaceful slumber of a lair of hibernating dragons is interrupted by a drilling crew in present-day London. These dragons, along with thousands of others, wake up around the world and begin burning civilization to the ground. The movie skips past the ensuing human-dragon war to a post-apocalyptic future where we clearly lost the fight. But not all hope is lost. Armed with a few rifles and a convenient discovery about a weakness in dragon biology, a young Brit and his American counterpart mount one last battle against a species that brought humanity to the brink of extinction. If this fictional dragon onslaught occurred today, do you think you'd make it? Do you think you'd live long enough to join the final post-apocalyptic battle? And if so, do you think you and your fellow survivors would be able to succeed where the pinnacle of our modern military minds, technology, and scientists failed? You do? Well, you're wrong, and I'm here to tell you why. From dragons to collateral damage, I'm going to review all the ways you'd be turned into a smoldering pile of ash. In each step of the way, I'll remove your thermal plot protection, smoke out plot holes, and reveal new dangers you hadn't considered. In this video from Strange Thoughts, I'll cover the top 10 reasons you wouldn't survive the movie Reign of Fire. However, before I get to your free cremation, hit the like or subscribe button as it really helps me make more videos. And do it now, because by the end of this video, most of you will be the ashy fertilizer our post-apocalyptic community uses to grow next season's crops. Before we get started, I also need to add a quick disclaimer. Originally, I had plans to make this a how to beat video. I hinted at this in my last video about how to beat the movie's initial dragon onslaught using today's military. This follow-up video was to cover how to beat the dragons if those ideas failed and we were plunged into the post-apocalyptic setting of the film. However, when I started thinking about how to beat the dragons without jets, drones, and nukes, I had an epiphany.
We are totally fucked. And not just fucked, like elephant dick pounding the ass, no reach around junk.
Without modern weaponry, there was no way we were going to beat this prehistoric race. Thus, I did a 180. I decided to cover why you wouldn't survive the film's post-war setting, as well as why many of you wouldn't even make it to this shitty future devoid of high-speed internet and Amazon Prime. With that out of the way, let's get to the analysis. Reason number 1, you climbed into a void. The film starts by introducing us to a young Brit named Quinn. Quinn is visiting his mother, a member of the drilling crew adding onto London's underground metro. Walking straight into the construction site with no safety equipment or escort, he works his way to an elevator which takes him to the mining operation below. Before any significant dialogue, we get our first product placement. Budweiser, the official beer of London Metro drilling operations. I guess when you can't get a product placement in a Bond film, this is the next best thing. Quinn starts talking to his mom, but is interrupted by a member of the construction crew who informs her the drilling team has run into a problem.
Jess says it's hit some sort of a void.
As Quinn's mom shifts her attention to the predicament, Quinn begins freely exploring the dangerous mining operation, working his way to said void. There, a member of the drilling crew encourages him to check it out. With no training, safety equipment, or spare batteries, he sends Quinn in to investigate. Now, if you watch any horror films, you know your life expectancy plummets once you step into a void. The minor dangers of toxic gases, cave-ins, flooding, and vertical shafts pale in comparison to the real danger. And that is that bad things hibernate in voids. Whether it is facehugger eggs, blind cannibals, or man-eating bats, there is usually something in a void that has been waiting a long time to kill you. The best case scenario for entering a void is that your GoPro captures some gruesome footage of your death that the next explorer can watch before they then die. What young Quinn finds is not giant spiders, alien eggs, or hungry crocodiles, but a den of groggy dragons woken from their slumber by noisy drilling equipment. Looking up, Quinn finds one of the dragons staring him down. Now, if this was you, we'd get our first kill. However, instead of burning young Quinn alive, the dragon spits some sort of slimy goo on the young Brit's face. Why Quinn is spared is something not answered by the film. Maybe it takes a few warm-ups before the fire breath works. Maybe the dragon has allergies. Maybe Quinn is the king of dragons. Quinn runs out to tell the others, chased by the dragon, who begins unleashing a fiery hell on the drilling crew. He and his mom escape to the elevator where they begin their slow ascent out of the tunnel. After finishing off the last of the mining workers, the dragon follows them up the mine shaft where it stares down Quinn again, sparing his life for the second time. I'm not declaring him a dragon Dragon King just yet, but this is starting to get a little suspicious. The dragon then emerges from the tunnel along with several others who begin turning London to ash. The film then fast forwards to a post-apocalyptic future where a much older Quinn tells a story of how humanity was defeated by the dragons. But we're going to stay in the present for a little longer. We need to discuss all the reasons most of you will become a statistic soon after the dragons emerge from hibernation. Reason number 2, you live in a city. There are a lot of great things about living in a city. Great food, entertainment, culture, the list goes on and on. However, one thing not on that list is survivability during apocalyptic events. Whether it be a zombie outbreak, alien invasion, or the yearly purge, you being surrounded by a lot of humans is a bad thing. It's no different in this movie. According to the film's narration of the events following the London tunnel incident, the dragon Quinn encountered was just one of many that emerged all over the world in some type of weird biological synchronization. This means that from London to New York, thousands of these beasts will begin simultaneously turning the world to ash. Hungry from their 1,000-year hibernation, they'll turn their attention to the large quantities of human meat that exist in our cities. The delay in military response caused by the initial confusion will give the dragons free rein to start burning cities to the ground. Those caught outside will be the first to die, but those hiding inside won't last much longer. To hungry dragons, buildings will look like giant Happy Meals full of tiny human treats. They'll rip through these structures like an anteater on a termite mound. Those seeking shelter in the basements and parking garages of these buildings will substitute being burned alive for being buried alive. The intense heat from the dragon's fire breath and general ravaging of the structural supports will cause buildings to fall in on themselves, crushing and trapping those hiding below. If you're lucky enough to survive the first few hours, you'll immediately start trying to leave the city. The thing is, so will everyone else. Dragons will make strafing runs on gridlocked highways, bringing a whole new meaning to Meals on Wheels. Some may anticipate this and offer a subterranean escape. However, they'll soon realize their great idea of using subway tunnels was not unique. In addition to the aforementioned threat of structural collapse, the stampede of scared humans behind them will make running like the bulls look like a kid's game. In short, you in a building, you dead. You stuck in gridlock traffic, you dead. You running down a subway tunnel chased by massive scared meatbags, you dead. And it doesn't stop there. I'm just getting warmed up. Dragons are the first in a long list of reasons you won't survive. The US military has joined the game, and they have a new perspective on what constitutes acceptable collateral damage. Seeing the destruction in our cities, military analysts will begin estimating how much damage these prehistoric reptiles could do over the coming days, weeks, and months if not stopped immediately. Their assessment will conclude that these fire-breathing beasts fall somewhere between an Independence Day and Judgment Day level event on the DoD's apocalyptic assessment scale.
My God. What do we do?
Military leaders around the world will make the decision to stop the dragons immediately, even if it means a large amount of civilian casualties. That said, they won't go straight to nukes. Their escalation of force will be guided by a specific policy governing the military's response to alien invasions, zombie outbreaks, and monster attacks. Known by only a few in the United States military, the MMN policy stands for Marines, Missiles, and Nukes. It outlines the gradual escalation of force for any apocalyptic level threat. While not detailed explicitly in any formal documents, countless examples of MMN can be found in movies from Cloverfield to Independence Day. Putting this policy into place, military leaders will immediately deploy the Marines and other ground forces. Machine guns, rocket launchers, tanks, and K-bars will all be authorized for use on the dragons. The same dragons in close proximity to you. Their orders will be to bring down these beasts at all costs. Given the fact most modern weapons aren't designed for this threat, there's going to be a lot of collateral damage. While it's anyone's guess whether a 30 caliber round would make it through dragon scales, we do know what it will do to the human meat suits caught in the crossfire. It will be almost impossible for James A. Janice to keep track of all the kills at this point. He'll have to hire a whole team to sort through this mess of dragon carcasses and bloody corpses. The next level of escalation, according to the MMN policy, is missiles.
Release on every target you got now!
The largest aerial battle since Independence Day will take place in the skies above. Fighter jets and dragons will go wing to wing in aerial battles that would make Michael Bay scream out in ecstasy. This will result in a heavy downpour of fighter jets and dragons as the battle takes a toll on both sides. Jet fuel, explosive ordnance, and dragons filled with natural napalm will fuel a massive firestorm intent on overtaking Dresden's spot on the leaderboard. Eventually, we'll realize missiles were fun, but not effective. Our leaders will then escalate to the final level of the MMN policy.
Let's nuke the bastards.
With cities burnt to the ground, they'll make the ultimate trade-off in their last-ditch attempt to save our species. Nukes meant for foreign powers will be turned on our own countries against large swarms of dragons. I don't have to tell you that most of you won't survive this initial nuclear assault. However, I do feel the need to say that most of you won't want to survive. In addition to nasty radiation burns, nuclear winter, and famine, you'll face one of the worst enemies of all. Reason number 4. Other humans, round 1. The threat of other humans is so great, I'm gonna have to cover it twice. This threat comes in 2 forms, dummies and assholes. Dummies are the ones who accidentally get you killed due to their poor decisions. Assholes are the ones who purposely get you killed. The good news is that most dummies will be wiped out in the initial attacks. The bad news is assholes thrive in an apocalypse. Their willingness to throw others under the bus elevates their survival chances above their moral counterparts. Let's take a look at why asshole humans are just another reason why you wouldn't make it. As days turn to weeks, the dragon attack will take a heavy toll on our military and police. What remains of these forces will be focused on fighting the dragons, not maintaining the thin veneer of our civilized society. This, coupled with a scarcity mindset due to dwindling resources, will turn a percentage of your co-workers, neighbors, and friends into assholes.
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
You may turn into one yourself. Now, not all these assholes will have selfish motives. Some, like the Karen who machine guns you down on aisle 7, will be assholes for the sake of their loved ones, like her family who can't live without 2-ply toilet paper. However, regardless of their reasoning, this will create an environment devoid of the security and order humans long for, opening the door for a smarter and more charismatic type of asshole, the asshole leader. These individuals will take advantage of humans' natural willingness to trade autonomy for security. Once established, they'll do what asshole leaders have done throughout history, expand their power base by way of sacrificing the lives of their subjects. They'll take on other mini Stalins as well as good leaders, like Quinn, who lived through the Dragon Armageddon to establish his own community. Leaders like Quinn, who truly want the best for humanity, will take on these asshole rulers in gruesome battles to make the dragon attacks look humane. Eventually, power will consolidate. Hopefully for your sake, the power consolidates into leaders like Quinn. However, even if you end up in a friendly community like Quinn's, you're still not in the clear. Quinn, while a great leader in most respects, has his blind spots. One of these blind spots is his strategic mind, as evident by his horrible selection of location for your post-apocalyptic community. This brings us to reason number 5 why you wouldn't survive. Form over function. At some point not covered in the movie, Quinn came across Bamberg Castle in Northumberland, England, all of which I just mispronounced. It is here that he decided to start his community. While at first glance the castle looks like a solid choice, let me cover all the reasons this is actually a classic case of form over function. We'll start by evaluating the location. Bamberg Castle sits on the coast of England facing the North Sea. There are several problems with the coastal castle. First, you stick out like a sore thumb to anyone or anything within miles. The castle is the tall structure around and looks like McDonald's to passing dragons. This brings us to the second problem, which is that it provides little to defend you against an attack. While it looks like a formidable structure, the castle will do little to protect you against a hungry dragon who look at the stone walls like a wrapper on a cheeseburger. To stay alive, your community would need to dig a tunnel system like the one in the film. This is challenging when you're located on the coast. I'm no geologist, but the high water table that results from you being 1,000 feet from the North Sea may pose a problem when you're building an underground tunnel network. Finally, we get to the problem of drinkable water. You'll need to find a way to reliably get enough fresh water for your group of 100 thirsty survivors, as well as the crops growing next to your castle. Unless you have the knowledge, tools, and means to build a large-scale desalination plant, you're going to be doing a lot of praying to the rain gods. Don't get me wrong, a castle is cool and gives you plenty of style points, but it sucks in a post-apocalyptic world full of dragons. There were plenty of better options Quinn could have chosen from. For example, one of the many national parks in England would have solved all these problems and introduced a number of advantages. Advantages such as forests full of potential fuel sources, mountains with natural shelter, and distance from large groups of humans and dragons. Unfortunately for you, Quinn's choice of location isn't his only strategic blind spot. His inability to identify dummies and assholes means that some of these made it into your community. It's only a matter of time before they put you and everyone else in danger. Reason number number 6, Other Humans, Round 2. Like I mentioned earlier, there are two types of humans you have to look out for in an apocalypse: assholes and dummies. What I did not mention is that these are not mutually exclusive. A specific member of Quinn's community named Eddie falls in both categories. Like everyone else, Eddie's beginning to starve. However, instead of waiting for the harvest like the rest of the group, he wants to eat the crops before they're ready. Quinn does his best to convince Eddie how this puts the whole community's future at risk, but Eddie doesn't want to hear it.
There won't be a next season. We'll be starved to death.
What Eddie lacks in positivity, he makes up for in determination. After Quinn shuts down his daytime harvesting attempts, Eddie decides on a sneakier approach. While everyone else is asleep, he gets his family together and they venture clumsily into the community's farm, attracting a nearby dragon. In short order, the dragon kills most of his children and turns a majority of the crops to ash. Quinn's experience with Eddie provides a cautionary tale for what happens when your community's screening process to catch assholes and dummies relies on the same techniques used by today's corporations. I have no doubt Eddie came knocking with a great-looking resume full of inflated claims about his past accomplishments. He probably aced Quinn's interview process with perfectly crafted answers to hypotheticals like, what would you do in a scenario where you were starving but the crops weren't ready? Just as the smooth-talking assholes of corporate America glide up the career ladder and then make dumb decisions, smooth-talking Eddie gained access to Quinn's establishment and then put everyone's lives at risk with his dumb actions. Look, assholes are gonna asshole whether it's modern times or apocalyptic scenarios. However, while they'll just piss you off in today's world, they'll get you killed during a dragon apocalypse. If you or your settlement's leaders don't have a process to catch them, you're not going to survive. As Quinn and his best friend Gerard discuss how they're going to make it now that their food source is gone, their conversation is interrupted by a very non-British sounding voice on the castle's radio.
All right.
Yep, Matthew McConaughey and the Kentucky Irregulars have arrived to kick some dragon ass. America's back and coming to rescue some needy Brits, just like we have again and again and again.
It's from the Americans. They want to organize a counter-offensive.
It's about bloody time. What do they plan to do?
Is there a movie where we don't save the day?
I'll kill you! I'll kill you!
I'm just kidding, you feisty Brits. It's not your fault. There's just a lot of evil shit that comes out of your backyard. Matthew McConaughey, who goes by the name Van Zam in this movie, is the leader of the American soldiers. After defeating most of the dragons in their own country, they made a crucial discovery about the dragon's biology. This discovery led them across the Atlantic on their way to London. They must have decided to take the scenic route, as the Americans pretty much landed on the other side of England, 300 miles north of their ultimate destination. Working their way down the coast, they took shelter where available, eventually arriving at Quinn's settlement. Pulling up to the front gate, they begin to explain their mission and why they need Quinn's help. However, before they can get to their discovery, another dragon attacks. Here we get our first showcase of America's superior strategy and reason number 7 why you wouldn't survive: skydiving with dragons. In a world where fighter aircraft and attack helicopters fail to win the war against dragons, skydiving humans must now take their place. Where jet engines and missiles could not succeed, flying humans armed with electrified nets must now prevail. At least that's how the movie tries to sell the strategy of skydiving humans taking down dragons. Now, I'll admit, I've never been skydiving, so I may not be the most qualified to break down this strategy. But to the best of my knowledge, you're pretty much limited to going down. Yes, you can go down at one angle versus another angle, but you can't do much more. If we contrast this to a dragon that can go up and down at various speeds, turn quickly, hover, and shoot fire breath, I think it's safe to say that a skydiver versus a dragon is not a fair fight. However, a group of skydivers armed with electrified nets can even the odds. And that's a recruitment pitch to round up young men and women not yet wise enough to see the recruiter is only worried about upping his numbers. When these skydivers, called archangels, jump out of the helicopter, the reality of their disadvantages will become very apparent. A scene like the one in the movie will illustrate why signing up for an elite unit of skydivers called archangels guarantees both glory and an untimely death.
Envy the country that has heroes, huh?
After the battle, Van Zam gets a chance to tell Quinn why they flew all the way across the Atlantic. He explains that every dragon they've slayed over the last 20 years has been a female. Their theory is that there is only one male dragon who fertilizes all the eggs, and that this dragon lives in London. If they can take him out, they can bring an end to the reign of fire. Quinn, who's still traumatized by the events of his childhood, refuses to go. Not only does he think it's foolish to take on the much deadlier male dragon, but he knows it could lead the dragon back to his community. community. Not to be dissuaded, Van Zam takes off after the male, leaving Quinn to start chopping up the dead dragon for tonight's stew. When he gets close, he notices it's carrying an egg. Reason number 8, when How to Train Your Dragon goes wrong. I know what you're thinking, and Quinn is thinking it too. It's time to Daenerys this shit and train some baby dragons.
Dracarys.
This is an idea not explored by the film, but a tactic someone is bound to try at some point. That is why I need to document it as reason number 8 why you wouldn't survive. Various movies and books suggest that some humans, due to skills or special gifts, can befriend and even train dragons to do their bidding. These stories will inspire at least a few to adopt a cute baby dragon in the hopes it can become an ally to fight off other dragons. While a trainer may have some initial success with their dragon toddler, once it hits puberty, things will change. Its increased size and violent mood swings will endanger everyone involved. Those fostering this teenage dragon will learn that no matter how much you love a bigger, stronger, and deadlier animal, it will eventually remind you where you fall in the food chain. Whether you're the one doing the training or just so happen to be a part of the settlement facilitating this little experiment, you're not going to survive. There is only one king of dragons in this movie, and we'll get to him later. Reason 9, you won't survive long enough. While Quinn is training his baby dragon, Van Zan's convoy is moving in on London, the location of the dragon boss they must beat to bring an end to the game. As a member of such a dangerous mission, you already know you're dead. You are a hero that is going to pay the ultimate price so that others can live. Your goal is not to survive, but to survive long enough that you can slay the main dragon. Unfortunately, due to a horrendous plan of attack, you won't be successful in this respect either. Let's break down why Van Zan's attack was doomed from the start and why no one will survive long enough to accomplish its objective. We'll start with the fact that it's about 300 miles from Quinn's castle to London. Most of those vehicles, especially the tank, don't have much range when navigating difficult terrain. Those mechanical beasts are going to be really thirsty halfway through their journey. Since they didn't bring any fuel with them, they're going to have to find some along the way or ditch the tank and a few of the armored vehicles. However, range isn't the only problem with their choice of transportation. Tanks and armored personnel carriers aren't exactly quiet. In a world that no longer produces noise, the sound of tank treads rolling over rubble and human skulls is going to create quite the ruckus. This noise, coupled with the helicopter above, make it no surprise their convoy gets ambushed 60 miles outside of London.
It's not playing with us. It's setting us up.
When they get attacked, their tight formation makes it easy for one strafing run to vaporize the majority of the soldiers. Those in the armored vehicles don't fare much better. While most modern armor has some form of thermal protection, it is generally weakest at the top of the vehicle, which is the focal point of the dragon's flame breath. The fire from above will give those inside the chieftain tank a good idea of what it's like to be inside an Instapot. Finally, let's talk about their weapon choice. None of the vehicles have any anti-aircraft weaponry. Unless they're planning on hitting a dragon with a tank round, they should have left that thirsty boy at home. As far as personal armament, most of Van Zan's crew are wielding shotguns and rifles. They might as well be carrying Nerf guns because these things are going to do nothing other than make cool noises. The weapons, just like the armor, are completely inadequate for the task at hand. Due to these factors, the male dragon reduces Van Zan's convoy to a heap of melted metal and burning corpses long before they have any chance of taking it down. Reason number 10. You're not the king of dragons. Van Zam and the convoy's only other survivor, Alex, make their way back to the castle. There they find the smoldering ruins of Quinn's settlement. The attack not only failed, but prompted the dragon to follow the convoy's path back to the castle and burn it to the ground. The destruction of his community is enough to solidify Quinn's resolve to end the dragon's reign once and for all. He teams up with Alex and Van Zam to make one final attempt on the male dragon's life. In stark contrast to Van Zan's approach, they decide on a stealth attack. Their plan is to leverage Quinn's knowledge of London to sneak in and bait the male dragon into a head-on attack. This will introduce the chance to land a kill shot by hopefully, and I stress hopefully, causing the dragon to expose its soft underbelly. They make their way to the city where Van Zan climbs a tower, giving him the first chance to implement their plan. When his arrow misses, only slightly injuring the dragon, he reveals his backup plan. Somewhere, somehow, he recovered the Stormbreaker battle axe. Van Zan channels his inner MJ, leaping 20 feet through the air towards the approaching dragon. What seems like minutes pass as he locks eyes with the dragon and unleashes his war cry. With a swing to rival Thor, Stormbreaker pierces the dragon's skull, slicing its head in two. Van Zandt lands in the coolest way possible as the dead dragon eats dirt in front of him. Fireworks erupt behind the city, and Ewoks start playing music on stormtrooper helmets. The war is finally over. Humans can now look optimistically towards the future. A future without dragons. At least that's how the movie should have ended. Instead, Van Zandt gets eaten, and we're back to the original plan of landing a kill shot with our trusty crossbow. The fate of humanity now rests in the hands of Quinn. Literally, he only has one arrow left. He does have one advantage though. It's the reason why the dragon killed everyone but him in the initial scene. It's the reason he survived the nuclear Armageddon and battles that followed. And finally, it's the reason why all the female dragons guarding the lair conveniently disappeared. Quinn is the king of dragons. In the final battle, Quinn realizes the full extent of his powers, anticipating the exact moment the dragon will open its mouth. With a shot that would make Van Helsing proud, Quinn fires the last explosive arrow into the dragon's mouth, hitting the napalm sacs in its throat. The resulting explosion nearly kills Quinn as pieces of dead dragon fly out in every direction. The Reign of Fire has finally come to an end. Unless their theory was wrong and there are plenty of other male dragons they just haven't seen, which is most likely the case, meaning they're still fucked. And that concludes our analysis. If you think you would have been able to survive up to the final battle and pull off something similar to Quinn, you're either delusional or a Targaryen. Either way, the odds are not in your favor. I hope you liked my glass half empty analysis of why you wouldn't survive Reign of Fire. If you'd like me to expand your survival chances in other horror movie scenarios, please consider subscribing as it helps me make more videos. Thanks for watching, and remember to live life to the fullest. If something like Reign of Fire were to happen, chances are you're not gonna make it.